6 villains who can replace Homelander. After The Boys. Throughout The Boys' televised history, plenty of villains have stepped into the spotlight and left their mark, but Homelander always remained the show's central antagonist. Having been established as The Boys' main target from the beginning, Homelander only grew more powerful as the series progressed, especially when it came to his influence. Being the face of Vought gave him public support and plenty of corporate protection. But after seizing control of the company and pulling the strings of the US president in Season 5, he became an even bigger problem. Luckily, Homelander did receive a satisfying ending in The Boys' finale, as Billy Butcher brutally murdered him after he lost his powers. This offered a strong payoff to years of storytelling and allowed the main show to wrap up once and for all. However, the franchise is set to continue with 2 new spin-offs, and while it doesn't seem like either will directly follow the events of The Boys Season 5's ending, it's clear this IP isn't going anywhere anytime soon. As a result, it's only a matter of time before a new project emerges set after the main series, meaning The Boys needs a Homelander replacement. Finding someone as intimidating and captivating as Antony Starr's antagonist certainly won't be easy, but there are a few candidates that could fit the bill. Whether it's familiar enemies that manage to survive or unused faces from the comics, The Boys has a handful of foes that could become the next Homelander, and they all offer something a little bit different. Despite not being a soup, Stan Edgar feels like a fitting replacement for Homelander, as he once held authority over The Boys' main villain. Homelander had ample opportunities to kill Stan, yet he always left him alive since he respected his lack of fear, and also had something to prove to one of his several father figures. Stan's fearless nature is exactly why he was able to control Homelander and the rest of Vought's soups for so long, and come Season 5's conclusion, he's right back where he started. Having retaken control of Vought, Edgar is already in a great position to become The Boys' next big threat, as he is driven predominantly by capitalism and profit. He's seen the horrors these soups are capable of inflicting under the Vought umbrella, yet doesn't seem too eager to change his ways. The businessman may lack the physical strength and unhinged power that made Homelander so terrifying, but he's incredibly calculated, patient, and has much more natural charisma. As a result, Stan is able to manipulate soups, political figures, and the public much more effectively than Homelander, setting him up as a genuine threat. The fact that he doesn't have a god complex or desire for complete control also makes him more pragmatic than the show's previous villain, which adds depth to the cunning CEO. His ability to play both sides means he may even win over the next wave of heroes, having already worked with Gen V's key soups, suggesting he has the ability to become one of The Boys' strongest characters, and therefore, a solid Homelander replacement. Jack from Jupiter is one of the biggest characters from The Boys comics who didn't appear in the show, as he was not only a pretty prominent villain, but also a member of the Seven. Despite this, the only televised version of him we've seen was The Boys Presents, Diabolical's take on this unique soup. His unorthodox appearance saw him marketed as an alien in the comics, despite having a similar history to the rest of the Seven and being biologically human. However, this wasn't enough to gain much public interest, leading to him being largely neglected by Vought and his teammates, rendering him a largely unimportant part of the Seven. In the source material, Jack comes across as shallow and morally compromised, like most of the soups around him, and while he isn't quite as bad as the group's more despicable members, he's far from a good person. Going purely off his comic book counterpart, it's hard to see Jack emerging as a proper substitute for Homelander. He is weaker and generally less interesting, but the TV adaptation changed many aspects of the original characters, meaning it could easily do the same with Jack. By enhancing his superhuman strength and potentially adding another distinct ability that fits his appearance, Jack from Jupiter could easily steal the spotlight and be a real menace in Prime Video's universe. Perhaps his origins could be different, and he may be the start of a new breed of soups. Alternatively, Vought could have been hiding him away, as he may quietly be more powerful than any soup they've seen before. Either way, Jack has a distinct design and could easily be utilized more effectively than in the comics, giving him main villain potential. Although she's not a villain currently, Kate Dunlap has lent into her darker side previously, and with full mastery of her powers, she could be a fascinating new foe. In Season 1 of Gen 5, she was aligned with the main heroes, but was hiding some sinister secrets that mainly stemmed from other people manipulating her trauma. She flip-flopped back and forth between good and bad before eventually falling down the path of soup supremacy, which cost Kate her friends and an arm. In Season 4 of The Boys, she even made an appearance where she used her mind control powers on Frenchie to take him into custody, proving she's capable of villainy. Season 2 of Gen V did see her find redemption and reunite with the Godolphin group, where she looks to finally be a true hero. While this may make the idea of her ever becoming the franchise's main threat seem unlikely, she is one of the most impressionable soups around, meaning she could find herself in a dark place once again. Even if someone else tries to pull the strings, there's nothing to stop Kate from snapping and controlling several strong heroes to do her bidding. With the right mindset, the young Supo could take over Vought and become incredibly powerful. All she has to do is get inside a few people's heads. Her biggest weakness is the fact that she isn't as invulnerable as most soups, alongside being easily swayed by her friends. Still, if Kate were to put her humanity to one side and focus on a more selfish goal, she would be a hard villain to stop, and one that would be a logical opposition to the next generation of heroes. Replacing Homelander with a clone of himself may not be the most popular choice, especially with how long the boys spent trying to take him down, but it would fit the universe's bleak tone, whether this saw Anthony Starr reprising his role or having a potentially malfunctioning clone that looked different. It opens the door to more chaos. This version of Homelander wouldn't have nearly as large a personality as the original, but the clone could be even more detestable, as there isn't any form of conscience to hold him back. Even Homelander had limits, albeit not many, yet this direct replacement could do Vought's dirty work without protest, and be even more unhinged if it went rogue. Whether the franchise introduced a third televised version of Black Noir to pull this off, or just straight up unveiled a new robotic Homelander that Vought claims is an upgrade, this storyline remains unexplored in the live-action universe, meaning the possibility is still on the table. The Boys Season 5 teased the Homelander clone ending through Black Noir 2's story, proving it is clearly on the writers' minds to some degree. Therefore, pulling the trigger on this in a future project could be a great way of having new protagonists take on a Homelander equivalent, while potentially bringing back some members of the Boys for this fight. There's been plenty of talk regarding Stormfront's return, but considering all the questions around her fate, she does feel like a strong choice to take over from Homelander. We've already seen her as a central antagonist, and without having to share the spotlight, she could be even more effective. Vought Rising looks set to flaunt more of her villainous chops, and if she has retained the same ideology even after nearly dying at the hands of Ryan Butcher, assuming she's actually alive, Stormfront remains a big problem. How she'll be healed back to full health is anyone's guess, but her powers are among the strongest in the series. All the Boys needs is a way of explaining how she could have survived, what she's been doing, and how she's healed. Then it has an easy Homelander replacement just like that. A strong, hateful villain may not be too dissimilar to Homelander, but perhaps familiarity is what the franchise needs if it wants to continue the current timeline. Even if Stormfront's wounds never heal, there's no reason she can't pursue her ideologies through an equally menacing villain, Soldier Boy. Although Soldier Boy is set to be the star of Vought Rising, he didn't need to survive the boys for this to happen. Considering it's a prequel, meaning his fate has to be intentional. Maybe it seems too obvious, but there's a real chance the spin-off ends with Soldier Boys being placed in a cryopod in the 80s, only to awaken in the present. Sure, this could be an open-ended yet permanent end to his story, but given his history in the franchise and Jensen Ackles' popularity, it feels fitting he'd take over Homelander's role. He was Vought's original Golden Boy, and leading both the pre- and post-Homelander era feels extremely fitting. The villain is almost as strong as his son was, and he also has the power to take away other Soup's abilities, proving that he'd be an excellent choice to be the next lead antagonist. If Stormfront were to revive Soldier Boy in a future The Boys project, it could allow them to both step up as the lead villains, providing a new dynamic. Either way, Soldier Boy's survival shouldn't be for nothing, and with Vought Rising set to expand his backstory, He'd be a fan favorite choice to drive the boys forward into a new era.